It's time to get all set for Sunday, a podcast for busy and distracted Catholics with your hosts, Scott Williams and Jeff Traylor. When I hear the coffee brewing, I think, what the heck we doing? Because I got barely any sleep last night. As the diaper bag I pack with Hot Wheels dollies and some snacks, I say a prayer there'll be a seat in the crime room this time. It's alright, cause I'm all set for Sunday. It's alright, cause I'm all set for. It's alright, cause I'm all set for. It's alright, cause I'm all set for Sunday.
Welcome to All Set for Sunday, a podcast for busy and distracted Catholics to be a little more prepared for Sunday Mass. My name is Scott Williams. My co-host is wearing green today, Jeff Traylor.
Oh, green.
It's a nice shade on you.
Oh, thank you.
Very ordinary time.
I'm green with envy that I can't be as cool as our guest. Yeah.
He's pretty cool.
He is.
I mean, it's ordinary time, so I mean, my green just is dictated by the church. I really don't take credit for my green.
Most of what you do is dictated by the church, correct?
Much of what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to give the church credit where she doesn't deserve it.
You're just trying to keep the church humble.
No, I mean, credit for the things that I do that I should not do.
Ah, got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Will you stop messing with your mic?
That was the last time. Yeah.
I think so.
Don't make any promises you can't keep, Scott.
Oh,
That's the last time I will do it on purpose.
Father Ryan McCarthy, thank you for being with us and joining us.
You're welcome.
It is always a pleasure to have you on the podcast, especially when it's intentional and you don't just walk in to the middle of a coffee shop where we're at and recording a podcast.
2 out of 3 times I've been intentional now.
I know.
That's true.
Yeah,
You're
Not
nearly
bad.
a friend of the podcast.
nearly. And
Accept the pressure.
Is there some sort of
We
punch
did
card
at
I
some
need to
point.
get?
It's a loyalty card. Once you
Oh.
get 7, you become a friend of the
Okay,
Do you have yours with you?
no one gave me the
You
loyalty
lost it?
card.
You have to start fresh with the new one.
Really?
Yeah, Emily was supposed to assign that to you.
Saddens me that I failed.
Emily's going to yell at me. She's going to hear this and be upset.
All right. Well, are we ready for the 2-minute drill?
I think we are. Yeah. It is, we're heading into the 16th Sunday in Ordinary Time.
And this is the Sunday of the National Eucharistic Revival.
It is. So there's a medium-sized mass that will take place at Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday.
Fun little gathering
Yes, just a small little quaint gathering with
at St. Lucas Oil Stadium.
yeah, with somewhere around 200 bishops and cardinals, and
There'll be a lot of people.
yes, there will. But
Bishops and cardinals too.
yes, a lot of
I'm probably
Oh.
going to get in trouble for that one.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say we don't have many bishops and cardinals that listen to the pod, but if you do,
Yeah.
if you do, feel
Suddenly
free.
they'll discover it.
If you do, feel free to reprimand Father McCarthy.
I love our Archbishop. He's awesome.
He is.
Recommend in the comments.
Yeah, reprimand in the comments. Like, subscribe. Ring that bell, please. All right. 16th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Our first reading comes from Jeremiah. Not a bullfrog, but a prophet. Jeremiah 1-6. Huh? Bullfrog.
Bullfrog in the song.
Did you really think it was bulldog?
I mean, you're much older than me, which is when
That's I
The
feel
song
like
came out
your
long
lack
before
of
me.
knowledge isn't a reason that you should act out towards me, and like that was a little mean, but uh-huh. All right. Good friend of mine too. So Jeremiah 23, 1-6. So God speaks against the leaders or the shepherds that have scattered and harmed his people. And he promises that he will gather the remnant of his flock from all the lands where they were driven and bring them back to the pasture. He's going to raise new shepherds who will care for his people so they will no longer fear or be missing. And he tells us or foretells us of the coming of the righteous branch from David's line, a king who will reign wisely and do what is just and right. And the king will be called the Lord, our righteous Savior, bringing safety and justice to Judah and Israel. It did make me think that would be a cool name for a church, the Lord, our righteous Savior parish. Yeah. I don't know if that exists, but maybe I should ask. Hold on to that. Don't answer that, Father. I do want to ask them about that.
Okay.
making a note. Our responsorial psalm this week is the Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want. Maybe like top 5 banger, right? Like in multiple different, I can think of multiple versions of this psalm.
The
Probably
Good
not.
Shepherd Psalm.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty epic.
Yeah. And can be done so many different ways. But people are going, and everyone knows it. And this will be a loud one. This will be a really good one for the stadium. Like good. Oh yeah. Pump in outside fan noise. Yeah. And then our second reading comes from Ephesians chapter 2, 13 to 18. So in Ephesians, Paul is explaining that through Christ, those who were once far away, the Gentiles, have been brought near by the blood of Christ.
You're one of those Gentiles.
I am. Christ is described as our peace. He made the Jews and Gentiles one by breaking down the dividing wall of hostility. We could probably stand to follow that path a little more often. And through his death, Christ abolished the laws, commandments, and regulations to create one new humanity, reconciling both groups to God. And Paul emphasizes that the church preached peace to those far and near, giving the Jews and Gentiles access to the Father by one Spirit. And then we have our gospel reading. Our gospel comes from Mark chapter 6, 30 to 34. The apostles gathered together with Jesus and reported all they had done and taught. He said to them, "Come away by yourself and to a deserted place and rest a while." People were coming and going in great numbers, and they had no opportunity even to eat. So they went off in a boat by themselves to a deserted place. People saw them leaving, and many came to know about it. They hastened there on foot from all the towns and arrived at the place before them. When he disembarked and saw the vast crowd, his heart was moved with pity for them, for they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things.
It's quite nice, Jeff.
Thanks.
Father McCarthy, did Jeff get anything wrong? Any corrections that we need to make to the minutes?
Not that I'm aware of.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Father was listening too. A lot of times we ask priests and they're like, no, and I know they weren't listening, but Father McCarthy loves almost nothing more than getting to point out my flaws.
No,
So
true.
Process.
he might have been, though you'd at least be able to see it on his face.
Jeff, I love to see you prosper and do well. It brings great joy to my heart.
Thank you.
I've known you since you were much younger than you are now.
Yes. Much less round as well.
I didn't say that. I was just
Yes, I know.
I passed.
Yes, but all of our
affection
listeners
for you.
know the question you did ask Father Roscoe to ask us on the podcast, or ask me on the podcast. So
What was that?
What's the word you used to describe me?
Girth.
Girth. Yes.
Oh, yeah. He didn't understand what the word was. I figured you could enlighten
Yeah,
him.
that's kind of you. Yeah.
All right. So big mass is happening at Lucas Oil Stadium. But I'm assuming you have other duty. You're
I do.
involved.
I'm
You have the traditional Latin mass that's being said in
on
your parish.
Thursday and Friday. We're hosting the Eucharistic Congress's official
And
Mass is
sanctioned.
according to the 1962 liturgy of Saint John the 23rd.
Long distance.
It is the formerly known as extraordinary form, usually referred to as Latin Mass.
Oh, it's not known as the extraordinary form anymore?
No, that was abolished in Traditionis Custodes.
You didn't. This is like Bulldog. You didn't pay attention to that either. Jeez.
It's okay.
And the Traditionis is
it's hard to keep track of these things. It's very
yeah,
difficult.
I read about it in traditional tostadas too. So
I do like ice cream. We talked about this last time, I think.
he was going chips, Tostitos.
Oh, I was trying to follow where it went. I was like, I do like ice
You
cream,
like ice cream?
but
You
chips
like
aren't bad.
gelato more?
Gelato is also delicious. I mean, I wouldn't want to judge.
It's like
your
calling
kids.
your children a favorite. You can't. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
everyone has favorite children in one sense,
Yeah.
But in the ultimate sense of desiring the ultimate good for each child, I don't think any parent has.
Right.
a
We're
favorite child.
going down a road. So the 16th Sunday Nordic
Sorry, I didn't
time.
mean to hit on a
I
nerve.
know.
I'm sorry, Jeff's kids.
But in my mind, this is like the only mass happening in Indianapolis. I'm assuming that on Sundays priests also have to be.
Yeah, almost every priest in the archdiocese, I assume. I'm saying my own masses at my own parish.
Yeah.
Because life goes on.
Yeah. So you're not going to be able to soil though?
I'm not going to be at Lucas Oil.
I would imagine the priest crowd there will actually dwindle on Sunday from some of the other times of the week.
If I were coming in from out of town to attend the Eucharistic Congress, I would be bailing on Saturday morning.
Yeah. Because you'd have to get back for mass coverage.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think every priest left his station, then there'd be no masses anywhere else.
Yeah.
And
we shouldn't do that.
Sunday that all the priests should go to their home parish, and that'd be a really clear indication of which parishes aren't producing.
Yeah.
Priests to go to the same.
And there should be a sign on the door that says, "Your parish does not produce a living priest."
Moose out front should please go to.
Well, the moose out front would be good. I like the moose out front.
Oh, all right. Well, what are you preaching about this weekend?
So what I'm probably going to preach on is unity in the church. I haven't quite nailed it down entirely.
Okay.
But that's what I'm leaning on. I always love preaching on the priesthood and the Eucharist too. So I can't decide whether I should lean more on the readings or whether I should lean more on kind of like the national theme of the weekend, which is renewed understanding, renewed belief, renewed devotion to the Eucharist. And you can't have renewed devotion, belief in the Eucharist without the same for the priesthood, because the two are just too closely and intimately linked. So this year I've been trying to emphasize that link a lot for my people and in the devotions we do in the parish. So I've thought about, I might as well follow the theme through to the end of the Eucharistic Congress. So my guess is in the end, I'm probably going to preach on that.
This has been something kind of like an ongoing
theme for the year.
Have you noticed a change in your parish?
I have actually.
Yeah.
So starting about a year ago, we started daily adoration before Mass and then after Mass. So most of our Masses, we have adoration an hour before and adoration an hour after. And when we started it, there would be maybe 3 or 4 people for adoration before and maybe a half dozen people afterwards. And yesterday, I think we had 23 people before Mass and we had 35 people, I think, after Mass staying for adoration for a substantial period of time, not just like just a few minutes, but half hour or an hour after.
Just Mass. Like what time was like on a Wednesday at what time was the Mass?
7:20 is our morning Mass.
That's beautiful.
7:20 is our Mass.
Yeah.
Weekday. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So
that would be a large Mass of students in general on weekday. That's great.
We get between probably off school year, because our school kids at the neighboring school go every day, but off school year, we probably get 50 to 70 people for morning Mass.
Do you find that is because you obviously have a parish in close proximity to downtown? Do you get a lot of commuters who come for a daily Mass out of the?
A third of those are commuters.
Okay.
We do get a little bit of like the St. John,
which is awesome.
St. John is the downtown parish here in Indianapolis. We get a little bit of the St. John phenomenon where we have weekday parishioners and weekend parishioners, and they're not always the same. So we have definitely people who would probably consider themselves parishioners somewhere else, but are here 4 or 5 days a week for weekday Mass. So I kind of also consider them my parishioners.
It is actually at like a time that you can go if you work. That's like one of the things that I've like ran into is there's not very many parishes that have Mass times that if you work a typical job that you can realistically go to.
Yeah, an 8:15 or 8:30 Mass on a weekday morning
that's how we came up with the 7:20 time.
Yeah.
Which is we can get Mass done in a half hour. People who work downtown still have 10 minutes to get to work if they want to go to work.
I remember you one time telling me you could do a Mass in 7 minutes.
I said, theoretically, I could do a Mass in 7 minutes.
Okay. You remember that?
I don't remember when I said it, but I do remember like it was an experiment we tried. Another priest and myself, without actually celebrating Mass, without using water and wine. We were just wondering how, without being irreverent, how fast you could get to the Mass if you chose all the shortest choices. Like if you just chose the shortest option for every option, how fast you could get through. and we had it down to about 7 minutes.
Yeah.
It's depressing, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah. It's fair.
He's like, wait, where is that mass? I'm going.
Oh, you missed it. Come in 4 minutes late and just
We've had
wrapping
that.
up.
We've had that happen.
Yeah.
People start to depend on me being late, and then I'm on time. And then they're like, what happened? Mass is over. It's like, it's 25-minute mass. They're like, but normally you're 10 minutes late. I was like, I wasn't today.
I love that they count on you being late.
So if you go on the unity print, what are you digging into on the side of church unity?
On the side of church unity, just I mean, I don't like to give too much press to the other things that are going on, but there's, another group celebrating mass. I don't know if you've heard about it.
I've heard at a baseball field.
Yeah, at a baseball field. So I don't think this is helpful for the unity of the church. Like, I don't think this is not providing what Christ needs us to provide for the church to be strong and to grow and to foster. So I've thought about leaning into it a little bit and talking about the scandal of the divisions in the church, and not laying it any one particular person's fault, because there's definitely, in my judgment, mistakes that can be spread all the way around, but just the idea that in our society and culture, there doesn't seem to be a desire to see the good in the other and to presume the good on the other, rather there's this immediate kind of self-victimization and then division that occurs. And that's particularly within the church, that's a scandal.
Yeah.
I mean, and it literally divides the body of Christ, which is supposed to be one under Christ himself. So I've thought about preaching on that as well. It'll probably depend a little bit on how some things play out in the news. So,
Yeah, I mean, how public does it become, and how much of a story is it?
yeah,
And you don't want to like bring up a scandal that nobody even realizes is
Correct.
taking place and
Correct.
just draw more attention to it.
yeah. So trying to avoid. I don't want to draw more attention to. You always want to be good and loving parent, but if your child is getting the appropriate attention they need and decide to act out inappropriately, often it's important not to give them the attention they're seeking for the inappropriate behavior, right?
Yes.
So you don't encourage the inappropriate behavior, or so I've been told. I mean, you know better than I would. Well, kind of. And many more children than you do.
I was going to say you're doing it in an entirely different way. I do think this is very logical and makes sense, but the two themes you talked about really are not, like, they go hand in hand.
They do go hand
like
in
there's nothing speaks more to the unity that is called for and desired in the church than the Eucharist and the priesthood and what those draw us to and the purpose behind them. So
other than the Pope himself being the source of, or should be the source of, unity in the church.
Mhm.
I mean, that's his really sole charism, is unity in the church.
Yeah.
And unity,
like the role of Pope.
Yeah, the role of Pope is to provide for unity in the church around a common belief and a common Lord and a common faith, right? Faith and morals. If we believe one thing about faith, one thing about morals, then we're going to be united about the things that matter most. The next closest place where you see that unity is the priest in the Eucharist, because when the priest celebrates mass at the words of consecration, he is as much Christ as that host.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the priest and the host are one, because if they weren't, it wouldn't happen. Like, mass wouldn't be mass.
And I know that that's something you say with like a passion and not like a look at me, I get to do this, but I've known you for a long time to take that incredibly seriously.
No,
and wear that burden.
It feels more like a burden than it does anything else. Like, when you realize once a day I get to, but also I have to be that close to Christ. That's always like you stand before the throne once a day, and whether you want to be or not, you're naked. Like, in his eyes, you're naked, and that's a hard thing to be, but also that's where you find your unity, is in Christ and the truth about who you are and the truth about who he is and how generous he is in giving himself to us in the Eucharist. I mean, and if the priest doesn't realize that there's a self-donation that has to take place when he celebrates mass, like that he has to die with Christ on the altar, then his priesthood is not going to be very fruitful. But also the donation that Christ gives to the priest and, the people. And this is I mean, when he says it, the priest, it's his body and his blood because he's one with Christ. But then when he offers it, it's and receives it, it's Christ's body and Christ's blood feeding him. I mean, that sort of love is, of course, the source of unity in the church. It's amazing, profound, really.
Very.
It's one of those mysteries that just keeps drawing you in when you celebrate Mass as a priest, or should hopefully keep drawing you in.
Yeah.
What I mean, there's been that Pew study that shows, you know, the X% of, I can't remember what it is.
70% of Catholics don't believe in the real presence.
There's one other research study that said the wording of that question, since it was done by a secular institution, kind of skewed the response a little bit. So like, it seemed to be like actually better than it's supposed to. But
the numbers will say whatever you want the numbers to say.
right. But in the world of in a world, regardless of that study, there is a large number of Catholics that come to Mass.
In a world where a large number of Catholics do not believe in the Eucharist.
What's the elevator pitch? Like, how can you get somebody from like showing up to realizing the beauty of what you said, like the beauty of the priest role? And like, we also know that, you know, priests don't always live it out the way that you just.
Oh, I mean,
and I could imagine doing the same thing every day, day in and day out, might become routine. Which like, what are the things that you do to remind yourself, or what are the things that we need to do as lay people to recognize the beauty of what's happening in the Mass?
From God's perspective, he is divine and he can engage us in any way he wants because he's divine. From our perspective, we're always human. And so we as an individual can only actively engage God as a human being engages God, and then receive that grace and use that to engage more fully. I think too oftentimes people don't realize that this is a human relationship in that sense. And because we're also engaging the incarnate God, Jesus Christ, it's, you know, the God man, not remembering that this is a human relationship, and the same things you'd put into any human relationship need to go into your life, your prayer life in your life where you engage Christ. And if you think that you can just mail it in as a married couple, or if you can just mail it in with your best friend, or if you can just mail it in with your teammates or whomever, and it will just all work out, that's never true. And there's, I mean, enough bad things happening in the world today to where that should be self-evident to anyone. I mean, there's, in my experience, I think there's some statistical evidence to show this as well, but as my experience, there's 2 times people get divorced in marriages. The first time is in the first couple of years of marriage when they realize, oh no, what did we do? And the second time is when they get an empty nest and like, oh my gosh, what didn't we do?
Mm-hmm.
Because their life has become about their children, not about their relationship with one another. And they don't know how to relate to each other anymore because they forgot that they were in a relationship with one another. And they had this mutual goal of bringing up their children. And now the goal's gone. And so the relationship is gone. And I think that can happen oftentimes with us as Catholics, as Christians. We forget that the goal of this whole thing is a relationship with Christ. And if you're not approaching Mass with the desire to be in a deeper relationship with him and to allow him greater access to your heart and to your life, then it's not going to produce fruit, because without a relationship, there is no grace. I mean, there's prevenient grace, which is the proposal of a relationship, but there is no actual grace.
What about the?
Well, that's technically wrong.
You have a 3 and 6-year-old, and just getting through Mass seems like
even 2 Mass.
Yeah. 2 Mass can be a huge victory.
Yeah.
On time can be better. And if your children actually remain in some way quiet enough so you just remain in the pew, that's nearly miraculous. So I think there's 2 things that are important there. One is you keep focused on why you're there, and because you consecrate yourself to God certainly in going to communion and receiving communion, but the sacrament of the Mass is actually not the reception of communion. That's the fruit of the sacrament of the Mass, but the sacrament is being present to Christ. And so even if you're not being present to Christ in the way you would idealize, that doesn't mean you're not being present to the Christ in the way that he wants you to be in that moment. And even if you're not disposed to communion because you're aggravated chasing your kids around and you're not in the mindset to receive communion at that moment, that's not means you're not benefiting from being in a relationship with him. You're taking your kids over. I mean, in this sense, like you're taking your kids over to your parents' house and your kids are not doing well and melting down. You're like, sorry, we got to take them home and put them to bed. Your parents still appreciate the fact that you came over, brought the kids over, gave them a chance to see the kids. And you may want to have a conversation with your parents and hoped it went a different way. It doesn't mean everyone wasn't loving. It just means we live in a fallen world. And the second thing, which I often emphasize, I'm probably controversial in this, but I often emphasize, particularly to parents of young kids, is at least once a month, trade off and leave the kids home. Like, I think it's really important, particularly if you can't make daily mass on your own at some point in time, to be able to build your own spiritual life as an individual and not be chasing kids around. And so you can certainly put the hate mail in the comments, but I think it is very important that families with young children don't always attend mass together. That can be handled different ways. Like sometimes you could take the family on a Saturday and then one of the parents could go on a Sunday. It can mean you change masses. So one goes to one goes to the other. There's lots of ways to handle that. I'm not saying the best way to handle it, but I think it really is important that as an individual Christian who has an individual relationship with Christ, you have time with Christ alone. Just like it's really important for couples who are married to still go on dates and spend time with one another, even when they have kids, if their whole life is nothing but the kids. Children, not just in the production of children, but in the raising of children, are the fruit of parents' love. If parents cease to love one another, the children cease to be the fruit of that love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Father.
You're welcome.
For dumb questions.
I am. I always have so many.
Good. No.
I did. I wrote down a question about how churches get named when I had my idea there.
From what I understand, the bishop just gives the name.
Really?
Yeah.
But like, is there a requirement to it? Like, does it have to be a saint or a devotion or
Saint or mystery of our Lord's life.
tell me about
Or Our Lady's life. No.
what
There was an old tradition that you made sure each of the parishes had different names. So it'd be St. Mary of the, Immaculate Conception, St. Mary of the
knobs.
Annunciation, St. Mary of whatever. I mean, usually they were tied to different mysteries. So like St. Mary's in
I was going with St. Mary of the
North
knobs.
Vernon
Yeah.
is actually the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary.
Ah.
So, but everyone calls it St. Mary's.
So the title is, the name of the church is actually the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary.
Our Lady of the Greenwood is actually Our Lady of the Most Holy Rosary.
Not Our Lady of the Greenwood, Queen of the Most Holy Rosary.
I think that's its legal name. But
Okay.
the title of the church was Our Lady of
The Most Holy Rosary.
Yeah.
Which is interesting when you're at Holy Rosary.
I mean, we were first. We were first, Father Todd Goodson. We were first. Still are first. But you're an awesome priest.
He is awesome. Talking about Our Lady of the Greenwood like makes me think of it, but I've always found it really funny that, especially knowing that just it's the bishop picks, because there's also a really funny, like you can just look at a map and it's like, we need to put a parish in Mooresville. What should we call it? And he's like, St. Thomas More.
Yeah.
And he's like, we need to, like, there's so many parishes. Yeah. St. Lawrence.
St. Lawrence
Like
and
there's
Lawrence
so
River.
many of them.
St. Joseph in St. Leon.
That's funny. I never really thought about that. Yeah, but I'm sure there are also, as you look historically, towns that are named after parishes that were formed there too. So interesting. Okay.
On a side note, the bishop certainly can give the faithful of God insight and input in how he names a parish.
Yes.
I think oftentimes the bishop does do that.
Can you change the name?
You can change the name of a parish. Almost impossible to change the name of a church. Once a church is consecrated, it's almost impossible to change the name of the church, but you can change the name of the parish.
I just had a conversation a couple weeks ago with a woman who her pastor, they're trying to change the name of it's the Newman Center at the University of Missouri, but they're looking to change it to St. John Newman Parish from whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like in Rome. It's like they had to send it to the Vatican.
It's hard to change a parish name.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to change a church name.
Okay. Next dumb question.
Okay. I don't think that question was dumb.
Oh, thanks.
You think you're gonna have to dig deeper?
I mean, I can. So what? all these, the Eucharistic Congress going on. There's all these priests here. What do you, when you travel to a conference like this, like, is it like BYO vestments? Like you bring your own, or do they, is somewhere in the United States, do they have a set of like 10,000 matching chasubles?
I assume Catholic Concepts didn't get that contract.
We did not. No.
It depends on the event. I don't know what's going on for the Eucharistic Congress because
Okay.
I'm not stuck. I'm happy to be hosting
Yes.
things at my parish the whole time. So I have not engaged that side of the Eucharistic Congress because I know I'm going to be around doing things at my parish the whole
Yeah.
time. I don't know whether they're having a Congress vestment or not. They've done them for World Youth Days. Our archdiocese has a vestment made for all the priests, so we have
Mhm.
matching vestments.
Yeah, it's just like there could be thousands of priests, and I was just like, where do you keep those?
I
Where do you-
assume they're having them bring stoles and albs and not putting everyone in chasubles, but it would be
Oh.
cool if they did.
it would be. Maybe they will. I don't know. But no, we did
It's
not get
probably
that
too late to get
contract.
those
But
made up.
yeah, I don't know. They may ask. I don't know. You
Do
never
you guys have a liturgical vestment division of Catholic Concepts for market printing?
ever evolving. We're ever evolving, Father.
That'd be good. You guys should probably find a market for that.
Okay, I think I have lots of other questions.
You get ordained, but then you put on your freshman 15 first year of.
I wish it was just 15.
You know anybody who stretches out a casket on occasion, Father? Casket.
It'd be
Cassock.
even more impressive if we stretched out the casket. Usually my cassocks fit.
Yeah.
I mean, this one doesn't look too bad, does it?
No, not at all.
Yeah, I've got a good tailor. He does a nice job.
It's also probably because you wear cassocks on a very regular basis. I think people who run
Correct
into this
with me,
more,
what you're saying?
maybe, or you just like you just get bigger ones as they. But I think where you see this more are guys that don't wear theirs for a while, and then they go to put. It's like me when I go to put a suit on, and I'm like, oh, this must have shrunk in my closet.
It
Like,
probably
you know,
did.
wear it after long enough.
It
So
probably did.
all right.
Thank you, sir.
It's alright, cause I'm all set for. It's alright, cause I'm all set for. It's alright, cause I'm all set for Sunday.